Hello, welcome back to my channel and a very special welcome if you're new here. My name is Jen and this is Jen Clayton Beauty. We do everything beauty and makeup, and that includes ranking all of the eyeshadow palettes that I tried in April. I have been trying a lot of palettes this year. Some of them I'm receiving in my beauty subscription boxes. Most of them I'm purchasing myself. Very few I get in PR. And in the month of April, I tried 10 palettes, and I'm going to rank them from the worst to the best. So if you're excited, give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not, turn your bell on, because I upload a palette ranking every month and several videos every single week. I will link all of the palettes that I'm ranking in today's video down below for you. If you're interested in picking up any of these palettes for yourself, I will put any discount information as well so that you can get the most affordable price, as well as my favorite beauty subscription boxes, where again is where some of these palettes came from. Discounts to my favorite indie brands, all of the makeup that I'm wearing in today's video if you would like to shop this look. And come on over, follow me on TikTok for more beauty and makeup. So here's the 10 palettes I tried in April. Let's rank them. Like I said, I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up to palette number 1. Coming in last is this palette here from Voss. This is the Pretty in Paradise palette. It is an all-in-one face and eyeshadow palette. So this actually came in my Ipsy subscription for the month of April. It's an item Ipsy chose for me. I probably would not have chosen this Voss palette because I typically don't love the Voss formula. And that stands true with this palette. I will say that this blush is very, very beautiful, and this green shimmer, also beautiful. The rest of the palette, not beautiful, not easy to use, very, very sheer, very dusty. What I remember from Voss shadows, basically. I was hoping that maybe it improved a little bit, but that is not the case. I actually tested this palette in a testing new makeup. I created an eye look with it, so I'll link that video down below for you as well if you want to see me actually use this palette. But this has to come in at number 10. It's just not a good palette. There's not a lot of depth. There's literally 2 mattes. I even tried using this shade that I think is supposed to be a bronzer as a matte. It was awful. Just the palette itself is not good at all. So this is actually going right back into my declutter pile. Also in the declutter pile, coming in at number 9 is the Ofra Mini Mix palette. I also received this in a subscription box, and when I unboxed it, I made a comment about how I typically don't love Ofra's eyeshadow formula. I do love Ofra's complexion products. Their blushes, their bronzers, their highlighters, those are all absolutely beautiful, but I typically don't love their eyeshadow. So I did a testing new makeup with this palette as well, so I'll link that video if you want to see me create a look. The highlighter beautiful, the blush beautiful. I did not use the bronzer. I did use all of the eyeshadow shades, and the only shadow I liked was this green shimmer. The rest of them were dusty. They were patchy. They were really, really hard to apply to the eyes. They just didn't give any color payoff. What saved it truly was the highlighter, which I love Ofra highlighters, and this beautiful green shimmer shade. The rest of this palette, no. It's not good at all. It's not a palette I will ever use again. So it is also going right back into the declutter pile. Coming in next is this little quad from the Dollar Tree. This is actually the LA Colors Just Vibin Eyeshadow Quad. I did a full face of Dollar Tree makeup. Again, I'll link that video if you want to check it out. But this quad was pretty decent for the Dollar Tree. 2 mattes, 2 shimmers. This purple one is my least favorite in the palette. This is really the deepest matte, so unfortunately that kind of brought this palette down. The shimmers were actually really pretty, but it's Dollar Tree makeup. I mean, it's not going to be amazing, amazing quality, but it's better than the other 2 palettes that are much, much more expensive. I liked the color story of this, and overall it was a good palette. I don't know that I would reach for it again other than filming that video, so I think it's going to end up in the declutter, but it definitely came in higher than Voss and Ofra. Next is the Lotus Love palette from B Bella Cosmetics. Now this came in my ice cream beauty box in April. I did unbox that palette with you guys on my channel. I used this eyeshadow palette once and it's okay. I do think the color story is really, really beautiful. And this shimmer right here, this black based kind of shifty green blue shimmer called Water Lily, is absolutely beautiful. The mattes in this palette were pigmented, but they went on pretty sheer. So you actually had to put in some work to get some color payoff. That's not my favorite type of matte. I like a matte that I just swipe on and I instantly have color payoff. But my overall look with this palette was pretty. The shimmers are really, really nice. Like I said, this shade Water Lily is absolutely gorgeous. I love the pinks and the purples with these pops of green. This little shade up here in the corner called Party, this is the shade I used in my inner corner. That was pretty. So overall, the palette is okay. It's definitely not in the top, but it kind of falls more right in the middle. And that's the same for this palette. This also came in Ice Cream Beauty Box. You get a palette every month, sometimes 2 palettes. And in April, we got 2 palettes. We got this palette and this palette, both in April's box. So this is the Annette 69 palette from Beauty Creations. Now, first of all, these 4 little hearts across the bottom are pressed glitters. I did not try them. I do not love a pressed glitter, but this palette ranked higher because the color story I like better. Pressed glitters aside, the performance of this palette was much better. The mattes and the shimmers performed a lot better than the Lotus palette. This shade Dreamer, this silver, is really beautiful. And then I really liked this shade here, Leo. It's kind of a pink shimmer with a gold flaky undertone. I thought the mattes in this palette performed really, really nicely. And again, I like this color story better. There's pinks, there's a pop of green, a pop of blue, and then there's some neutral as well. What takes this palette down is the row of pressed glitters, just because I'll never get any use out of those. And the other palettes that fall in the top 5 are just much better quality overall. But this palette wasn't terrible, but it's definitely not my favorite. Now we're into the top 5, and this was hard because all 5 of these palettes are really, really good. Honestly, it came down to color story for me because these 5 palettes perform beautifully. And the first one coming in at number 5 is from Odiney. I actually have quite a few Odiney palettes because I got the Odiney mystery box in the month of April, and I didn't have any of the palettes that I received. So I unboxed that as well. I'll link it for you, but I was so excited to try all these palettes out. So coming in at number 5 is the Planet Spirit palette, which is in collaboration with Odiney and Betty Jean here on YouTube. This palette performed beautifully. My only critique with this palette, I like the color story, but it was hard for me to put together a look. My look ended up turning out absolutely beautifully, but it took me a while to think about how I wanted to use this palette, where I wanted to place the shadows, because they're mainly mid-tone shadows. There's no light mattes and there's no deep matte. So it's a lot of mid-tone, and that's not my favorite. I like having light, mid-tone, and deep mattes because I do like to deepen up my outer corner. So that is my biggest critique with this palette, is just their mid-tone matte. So it was hard for me to put together a look, but the mattes are gorgeous. The shimmers are gorgeous. This green shimmer right here, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Actually, all of the shimmers are beautiful. And like I said, overall, I really liked my end look. It was just a little bit harder to put it together. Coming in next is another Odiney palette that came in that mystery box, and this is the Trick or Treat palette in collaboration with Angelica Nyquist here on YouTube. And like I said, these are ranked simply for color story. The reason this ranked a little bit higher than the Planet Spirit is because it's much easier to create a look with this. There's light, mid-tone, and deep mattes, but it ranked a little bit lower because it's kind of a boring color story. It's a color story that I have over and over again. Oranges, greens, neutral browns, and then I do appreciate, though, the pops of color. So we have this beautiful green shimmer, this green matte, and this kind of mint green shimmer. That adds a little bit of life to this palette. It makes it just not a boring kind of neutral palette. Now, I will say, my eye look turned out beautifully. I used the mustard yellows in here. I used the neutral shades in my palette, and then I popped some green into the look, and I thought my look turned out beautifully. Loved the palette. Definitely want to use this again. It just didn't rank higher because it's much more of a neutral color story. So ranking right above that is the final palette from my Odiney mystery box, and this is the Little Ghost, again in collaboration with Odiney and Angelica Nyquist. Now this color story is much more inspiring and fun for me. I actually really love this palette. I love that we have a purple row with this random pop of chartreuse, which is gorgeous. We have a blue, pink leaning row, a full blue row, and then an orange, red, brick red row. This color story is beautiful. This palette is beautiful. It performed impeccably. Odiney makes one of my favorite formulas. So this one just had to be a little bit higher than this one, mainly based on color story, but they both perform beautifully. Now coming in at number 2 is the Lunar Beauty Moonroom palette. Now I bought the palette and I bought one of his lip oils and one of his lip glosses, and everything is amazing. I love Lunar Beauty and I love this palette. This top row of these like grungy sunflower shades give me life. They are so grungy and so beautiful. And then we have more neutral with a pop of green and a pop of purple, which makes this palette exciting and different. And then the shimmers are gorgeous. They are that wet foiled shimmer that we expect from Lunar Beauty. I just think this palette overall is inspiring. The color story is beautiful. It's grungy. It screams the Moonroom cover, and the packaging of this, as always, is 10 out of a 10, but I really like this palette. And even though it's more neutral, with the pop of color, it's an exciting neutral palette. And I always say, if I'm gonna use a neutral palette, it has to have a twist, and I love the twist in the Moonroom palette. I'm excited to see what else Lunar Beauty releases this year. Drum roll, please. Coming in at number 1 is not going to be a surprise to anybody because it's from my favorite indie brand, Unearthly Cosmetics, and that is the Spring Magic palette. This palette is so good. It's my favorite palette that Unearthly has released in the last year. It is so beautiful. Everything from the artwork on the cover to the color story to its performance is absolutely exquisite. I love this color story with every fiber of my soul. It is very, very unique because it has so many different colors in there. We've got this top row that is a lot of teals and a lot of blues, and then it pops in this multi-chrome that shifts from blue to green, so it pairs beautifully with any of the mattes. This white shimmer shade, gorgeous on the inner corner. I actually have a full tutorial unboxing of this entire collection, so I'll link the video for you. And then we have this 3/4 neutral green row. So we've got some greens and a pop of brown, and then this kind of green brown shimmer. We've got some pinks in this little quadrant over here, and then again we bring in some oranges and some neutrals in the bottom corner. So whether you're a colorful lover, a neutral lover, this palette has you covered in the mattes and the shimmers. We have light mattes, we have mid-tone, and we have deep, and I love this palette so much. I'm so inspired by this. It actually makes me giddy to see this palette, and I cannot wait to create another look with it. The formula, the way it performed, everything about it is perfection. I knew immediately this would take the number 1 spot. It probably is gonna rank, honestly, spoiler alert, pretty high in my overall ranking for palettes for the year because she's lovely. I absolutely am obsessed with Spring Magic from Unearthly. So those are the 10 palettes that I tried in April, ranked from worst to best. Let me know what these palettes you picked up. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Eyeshadow is subjective. We all have different tastes, but that's where I'm ranking the palettes I tried in April. And again, I will link everything down below for you, along with discount codes, the direct link to purchase the palette if you're interested. Everything will be in the description box, as well as my favorite beauty boxes, the makeup that I'm wearing today if you would like to shop this look, and come follow me on TikTok for more beauty and makeup. So that's a wrap on the 10 palettes I tried in April.